Good morning, everyone. So yes, you identified my little angry face icon. So I have been struggling with anger lately, and I think, like a lot of people, I think anger is epidemic, given everything that's going on in our world. And had a chat with Donna last night. We were after the preschool lesson, after we cleaned up here and went home. Um, we sat on the porch for a little bit, and we were talking about anger. And um, I know one of the reasons so many people are angry is because we don't. Nobody likes being told what to do. In fact, well, that's another subject, but I know nobody likes being told what to do. And right now, that's what's happening to us as a culture. We keep getting told you have to do this, you have to do that, and it's frustrating. And I know there's a lot of anger, and I know that that's one of the things that I'm struggling with anger. But we have been talking, well, just for a couple of days, talking a little bit about people who've influenced us, and mainly talking about words. At least that's my goal anyway, talking about how people have influenced us with words. And some of the people who have influenced me aren't necessarily people I even know. But their words have left an impression. So I want to tell you an angry story, a story about anger. And this isn't all that long ago. We were coming home from Wyoming, and we were doing a night flight, one of those joy-filled late night flights where you get home at 2 a.m. But we took off from Jackson. I don't remember where we stopped. Probably there's always a stop, Denver or Chicago or something like that. Morning, Rex. And the next flight was going to be the long one, the 4-hour flight. And about 2 hours into the flight, it was dark. Most of the people are sleeping. I always have trouble sleeping on a plane, so usually I read or do something like that. We were about 2 hours in the flight. Everybody has their windows down. The plane is dark. And all of a sudden, everybody heard loud music in our section. And I don't mean like overpowering music, but it was definitely loud music. And everybody was waking up and kind of looking around, trying to identify where this music was coming from. And we couldn't quite isolate it. The plane was packed, there's a seat. There's a person in every seat. So the plane's packed. We're all looking around, trying to isolate this music. And we ultimately could figure out, we all, right about the same time, I was on the window. I wasn't with Donna. Our seats were split up. I was in the window. There's a person in the middle and then the person on the aisle. And one row back behind us, the person on the aisle seat on the other side of the aisle, if you can picture this, was a young lady who had earphones in, and she was listening to music. And for whatever reason, something malfunctioned. And the music wasn't only going through her earphones, but it was also going through the computer that she was looking at, that she was through which she was playing music. And she didn't know it. She didn't know that everybody could hear the music. I don't know what went wrong. But, we all kind of at the same time figured out that that's where it was coming from. And I could see her, even though she's a row back on the aisle, I could see this woman. And the woman across the aisle from her, on my side of the plane, one row back on the aisle seat, she kind of was like waving her hand to this young lady, and even reached over and tapped the handrest next to her. And when the young lady looked up, the lady behind me was going like that. And everybody saw this and thought that would solve the problem. The people that were in that row of seats with this woman playing the music, both of them had earphones in, and they didn't seem to be bothered. But nothing seemed, the young lady who was playing the music, when this woman tapped on her hand, the armrest, she just kind of looked up and then went back to her computer and didn't understand that somebody was trying to tell her, we're hearing your music. So the lady in the aisle seat in my row, she was sitting aisle just 2 people over from me. tried to get the attention of a flight attendant who happened to be walking down the aisle at that time. And the woman in my row said, hey, this music is playing very loudly. And the flight attendant said, I know, I heard, I was just coming back to deal with it. So the flight attendant, took one more step back to the row behind us and tapped the woman on the shoulder. Hi, Patrice. Tapped the woman on the shoulder and explained to her and said, everybody can hear your music. The young lady didn't know. And whatever she did, she fixed the problem, and music got turned off. The flight attendant turned and walked away. And then I saw the lady pull out her earbuds, the woman whose music was playing loudly. She pulled out her earbuds, and I knew she was going to say something. And I'm sitting there watching, as so many of us were kind of watching, and I knew this was going to be a moment, and I didn't know which way it was going to go. And I'm thinking, she is either going to offer a general, kind of a general apology to everybody and say, hey, I'm sorry, I didn't know you could hear my music. Or she was going to lash out. And the general mood of the plane was kind of hanging in the balance. And rather than issuing a genuine apology, this young lady started lashing out. She started just yelling, say it to my face next time. Say it to my face. And she said that half a dozen times, just yelling it. And the flight attendant turned around and started walking back. And the young lady realized she had a cooler jets. So she just kind of angrily put her earbuds back in and went back to her computer. And, for a second, I think all of us were thinking, oh man, this is going to be one of these YouTube viral videos. We're going to get to watch an angry episode here, a fist fight between a young lady and a flight attendant or whatever. It didn't turn out that way. It ended. But it was one of those teachable moments, at least for me. The young lady with the earphones had a choice. There was a moment when she had a choice about either direction that she was going to go, and she chose anger. And I understand the initial feeling of anger. Maybe she felt, everybody's watching her. I don't know. It's hard to know exactly what a person was feeling. But and the reality is that there were a few people who had tried to get her attention, and she either looked up and ignored them, or who knows? But there was that moment when she chose anger, and she chose to lash out at everybody with that, when she's yelling, say it to my face, say it to my face. Honestly, I don't know that it would have gone any better for somebody to say it to her face. I think she was a young lady who simply chose anger. And I think right now, if like me, if you're struggling with anger, and a lot of people are, you may not even know you're struggling with anger. I think there's just this level of discontent, and there's this level of frustration and this level of anger because we're not in control right now, and stuff is happening to us. We don't like other people's choices. And I have experienced, and I have heard a lot of anger from a lot of people. And I'm kind of afraid it's only going to get worse. So I've been thinking about my own response, and there's no way to talk, to cover every issue of anger. In fact, I'm thinking like next week of doing a couple morning prayers on just anger. But because we're talking, thinking about our words and how we talk, not only in the Sunday morning messages, but people who've influenced by talking, I want to just very briefly just remind all of us of some of the things that Jesus taught about anger. And obviously this is not everything that Jesus taught. We've talked before about sometimes it's necessary to really be careful about setting boundaries. Sometimes it's necessary to end relationships with people who can be angry, especially violently angry. But generally speaking, when we're dealing with our everyday relationships, especially within the context of the church, some of the things that Jesus said about anger, let me just run through 4 things that are, these are some of my guidelines that come from Jesus. Number 1, whether you are the hurter, the person who has done some wrong, or you're the hurtee, the person who's been hurt, in either case, Jesus always said, you just go directly to the person that you've hurt or that's hurt you. You go directly to that person without involving others. This is the step where we just get derailed so quickly. So often we go elsewhere first. We go to social media, we go to our friends, we go elsewhere first. Now, I will say that at times, sometimes it helps to sit down with a person and get some advice before you go to the person. But that's different than what is our default often in going somewhere else when we've hurt somebody or when we've been hurt. But Jesus says, look, go to the person. And I'll just say that there's so much grief that could be avoided, so much pain, so much heartbreak, so much dissension, so much division, if we just practice that simple guideline from Jesus. When we're angry, if we've been hurt, or even when we're doing the hurting, the very first thing we need to do scripturally, this is just biblical, it's straight from Jesus, is we go to the person without involving others. Secondly, and I've been saying this a lot lately, just because I'm really conscious of how we're not doing this very well. We give up the need to be right or to win. This is kind of hard sometimes because we want to be right, we want to win. I don't need to be right. I don't need to be seen as the winner. It's not my goal. My goal ultimately is reconciliation. My goal is a relationship that's maintained, even if honestly, sometimes those relationships are going to be maintained even with some boundaries, depending on, again, what's going on with the other person. But, I give up the need to be proven right or to win. Thirdly, I want to listen first. We just don't know sometimes what's going on in another person's life. We don't know sometimes what's causing that anger. And sometimes if we just begin by listening, by asking questions, by trying to get to the root of, hey, I'm wondering why you said this, or, you responded a certain way, or, you really seem to be struggling, and I'm wondering if you can help me understand what's going on in your life. If we ask questions and listen first, often we find out there's more to the story than we knew, and it creates kind of sympathy and empathy and understanding when we do that. And I can't tell you, one of the rules, I don't know if you would call it a rule, but when I'm in a situation, and I'm not a great counselor, people who are better therapists and counselors than me, maybe they don't have this issue. But one of the things I struggle so much with in counseling is a person will come in and tell me half the story, and then I'm dealing with that half. And later I hear more of the story, and I'm thinking, well, that changes things entirely. So if we listen well, and if we ask questions, and if we ask people to tell us the whole story, if they're able, that often changes our perspective. So again, for me, um, lesson number 3 for me is to listen first, to listen well. And then finally, even just to practice humility in my response. I pretty much know that I'm capable of often doing the same things, of lashing out, being angry inappropriately, making the same mistakes that most other people are. And I certainly want grace for myself. So if I practice humility and recognize I want to be able to give the same person the same kind of grace that I want, it'll often de-escalate the situation and lead to reconciliation. So those are, for me, those are just the guidelines that are just so important. And there's so much that could go better, so many problems that would have never blown up, so many things that could be de-escalated rather than escalated if we would just follow Jesus in some of these guidelines. Whether you're the herder or the herdee, go to the other person first without involving others. Give up the need to be right or to win. Practice listening and stay humble. And in many ways, just those things will really de-escalate the level of anger that so many of us are dealing with in our culture right now. No, there's a whole lot more to it, a whole lot more to anger, a whole lot more we can talk about. And like I said, I'm thinking about next week in our morning prayers, talking about it, just because I don't think I'm the only one that is struggling with anger and trying to figure out how to navigate all this. So anyway, so this morning, just thinking a little bit about our words, and how we can use our words to resolve some of the anger issues that we're dealing with. So let me pray, and I think I'm hearing rain. No, I'm not. Let me pray, and then we will get on with our days. All right. God, this again, just as for a lot of us, we're really navigating uncharted territory, and it's difficult. And I know a lot of us, God, so many people are really struggling, and it's not going away, God. It seems like we have a good day. It seems like we're on a good track and everything goes well. And then, God, it just seems like things fall apart. God, I know that there are, that like me, there's a lot of people who, just because of the situation that we're living through, are really struggling with being angry. I know, God, that tempers are short. I know, God, that a lot of us are feeling like we're just drained. We don't have the resources to not be angry. And God, there's a lot of damage being done by words that are being spoken, by people who are handling anger in ways that are not only inappropriate, but in ways that are really escalating just the general climate of ugliness. So God, I pray that you'd be helping us as followers of Jesus. I pray that as people who want to be transformed, that you'd be helping us to be people who can get a grip on how to deal with these things appropriately. God, it takes courage for some of us to go to the person and to speak candidly. So I pray, God, that you'd give us courage. I pray that through your Spirit, you'd be at work in us, helping us to have the fortitude and the spiritual strength to do what we need to do. Pray, God, that you'd also be helping us with our anger. You'd be helping us to be people who are calm and confident and have our strength in you. And I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. Alrighty, everybody. Hope you guys have a good day, and love you all. And see, what's today? Friday. So I won't see you tomorrow. Tim DeMott, who, as I think most of you know, had an issue this past week. It's YouTube, so not for me to talk about, but Tim will be talking to you tomorrow. So hope you guys will plug in and give your good wishes and prayers to Tim tomorrow morning. So thanks all. Love you all. Goodbye.